Hi, my name is Anna Akunto from the University of Texas at Austin, and in this video I'll model and demonstrate how to complete the Math Fact Flashcard Activity. This activity is the first component in the Pirate Math Equation Quest small group intervention for Texas word problems in the 3rd grade STAAR. STAAR stands for the State of Texas Assessment of Academic Readiness, which is the Texas equivalent of a state standardized test. Each lesson in the STAAR intervention includes 4 components: Math Fact Flashcards, Buccaneer Problems, Ship-Shape Sorting, and the Jolly Roger Review. Today I'll demonstrate the first component, Math Fact Flashcards. For the Math Fact Flashcard activity, you'll need the following 5 materials: the Counting Up Addition and Subtraction poster, a timer, the Math Fact Flashcards, the Math Fact Flashcard graph, and a colored pencil or crayon. Now you might be asking yourself, what flashcards should I use? The STAAR intervention includes a combination of all 4 types of flashcards, beginning in Lesson 1 and continuing until Lesson 18, to ensure that students receive ongoing fluency practice of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, which are all presented in the STAAR. So for Lessons 1 through 18, the entire course of the intervention, a combination of all 4 flashcards are used. So anytime you complete Math Fact Flashcards, you use the following 5 steps. Step 1, which is seen over here, is to complete the first trial of flashcards with students for 1 minute in a round robin. During the first trial, students answer as many questions correctly as they can in 1 minute. Step 2 is to count the flashcards. You count the number of correct flashcards from trial 1. Step 3 is the same as step 1. Students complete a second trial of flashcards with 1 minute and a round robin, answering as many flashcards correctly as they can. Step 4, similar to step 2, is to count the flashcards. Students and the teacher count the number of correct flashcards from the second trial. And finally, step 5 is to graph the highest score. The teacher and the students graph the highest score from the first trial and the second trial, and graph the highest score for the day. Before the activity begins, make sure you have your Counting Up Addition and Subtraction poster displayed so that students can use the poster to help them answer the Math Fact Flashcards if needed. A picture of the Counting Up poster is shown here to remind you to display the poster before completing the activity. Step 1 says 1 minute timing. The teacher begins by setting the timer for 1 minute. Once the timer has been started, the teacher says start. The teacher shows the first flashcard to the first student. The student then answers the flashcard. If the student answers the flashcard correctly, the teacher places the card in a discard pile on the table. If the student answers the flashcard incorrectly, the teacher helps the student to arrive at the correct answer by prompting them to use their counting up strategies. Once the first student has completed the flashcard, the teacher then presents the second flashcard to the second student and repeats the process for a minute, showing 1 flashcard to 1 student, 1 flashcard to the next student, to a 3rd student, 4th student, so on and so forth. At the end of the 1 minute, the timer will beep. When the timer beeps, the teacher says stop. Step 2 says count the flashcards. In step 2, the teacher and the students count the number of correct flashcards answered in the discard pile. As a teacher, you can allow students to count the cards or to provide an additional opportunity to practice the counting skills. After the cards have been carded, the teacher tells the students that they've answered so many flashcards correctly, and then asks the students if they think they can beat their score in the next round or the second trial. Step 3 says 1 minute timing. This is the second trial of Math Fact Flashcards. In this trial, the teacher and the students repeat the same process as step 1, answering as many flashcards as they can in 1 minute in a round robin style. At the end of, similar to the first trial, at the end of the 1 minute, the teacher says stop, and they move on to step 4. Step 4 says count flashcards. Similar to step 2, the teacher and students count the flashcards from the second trial. Again, allowing students to count flashcards with them for an additional opportunity to practice counting skills. Finally, step 5, graph the highest score. Here, the teacher can assign a student to color the graph for each day, or the teacher can color the graph themselves depending on the timing of the lesson. The teacher can also select a student who has exhibited on-task behavior and who worked hard that day to color the graph. The teacher or selected student graphs the highest score from the 2 trials by coloring in the corresponding number of boxes on the graph. This is an opportunity to allow students to practice their graphing skills and to monitor their progress throughout the course of the intervention. So now that I've talked about the 5 steps to completing the Math Fact Flashcard activity, let's watch a video of a teacher implementing the activity with a group of students. Notice that the teacher sets the timer for 1 minute and shows the first student 1 flashcard at a time. The teacher uses multiplication and division flashcards together. The teacher uses a round-robin method to ensure that each student has the same number of opportunities to answer. The teacher uses specific questioning to help students who answer incorrectly to arrive at the correct answer. And finally, the teacher assigns a student to graph the highest score for the day.
6. 100. 2. 32. 55. 60. 60. 110.
Almost. 11 times 10 is what?
120. 1.
Yeah, nice.
2.
Yeah, by 6s?
6. 9.
6s. 6.
12. 18.
How many groups? 3. Nice. You guys always try and do that last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, so we have to take 19, right? Alright. Brittany, you want to just color with your pencil 19?
In this video, I demonstrated how to implement our Math Fact Flashcard activity in the Part Math Equation Quest small group intervention for Texas word problems in the 3rd grade STAAR. For more information on how to use counting up addition and subtraction strategies, you can click on the link in the description. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize IES, the University of Texas at Austin, and the Meadows Center for Preventing Educational Risk. Without their contributions, this research would not have been possible. Thanks for watching. So before the activity begins, you need to make sure you have your counting up, addition, and subtraction poster displayed so that students can use the poster to help them answer the Math Fact flashcards if they need it. A picture of the counting up poster is shown here to remind you to display the poster before the activity. Step 1 says 1 minute timing. The teacher begins by setting the timer for 1 minute. When the timer starts, the teacher says go. The teacher begins by holding up one flashcard to one student. The student then answers the flashcard. If the student answers the flashcard correctly, the teacher puts the card in the discard pile. If the student answers the flashcard incorrectly, the teacher prompts the student to use their counting up strategies to answer the flashcard correctly. Once the student has answered the flashcard correctly, the teacher then places the flashcard in the discard pile. This process continues to each student in the group, starting with the first student once they answer the flashcard correctly, moving on to the second student, the third student, and so on and so forth for 1 minute. Once the timer beeps, the teacher says stop, and the kids stop doing the flashcards. Do I need to
Sorry, Matt.
redo that last one? Thoughts?
I think just don't look at the thing and just talk about it as you did it. Because you did it as a teacher. Just talk about what you did.
So I do need to redo one
I
of
don't
these.
think so.
This one?
I thought that was fine.
You want the pause at the end? And then the kids stop.
Is there enough of pause between when she finished and the laugh? Like, is there like a fraction of a pause between when she stops saying and the kids are done?
I think you might need to do that one over.
Okay.
Okay.
But just say, in step 1, we have a group, and we have a round robin, and the teacher starts with the first student, and the teacher presents the flashcard. Like, do it how, I think you're getting tripped up with the notes.
I think so too. I just don't want to.
You're not missing anything.
Okay.
I mean, you know, you've got it.
Let's remember how we do this. Card down.
Think about your kiddos.
I know, I had to like remember. It's been like a year.
Izzy,
Oh, my cute kids. Okay.
cuties.
Okay. Before the activity begins, make sure you have your counting up poster displayed so that students can use the poster to help them answer the flashcard facts if needed. The picture of the counting up poster is shown here to remind you to.
I'm going to stop you.
Yep.
You're pointing at the timer.
Oh, it's so far away. Is it weird if I stand here?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
Great.
All right, so before the activity begins, make sure you have your counting up, addition, and subtraction poster displayed so that students can use the poster to help them answer flashcard facts if needed. A picture of the counting up poster is shown here as a reminder to display it before the activity begins. So step 1 says 1 minute timing. The teacher begins by setting the timer for 1 minute and says start. Once the timer starts, the teacher shows the first flashcard to the first student. If the student answers the flashcard correctly, the teacher puts the flashcard in a correct discard pile on the table. If the student answers the flashcard incorrectly, the teacher uses the counting up strategies and prompts the student to solve the problem correctly. Once the student has solved the problem, the teacher puts the flashcard in the correct discard pile and moves on to the second student. The second student then repeats the same process with the bum 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 bum. Yep. Okay. So now that I've talked about the 5 steps of the Math Fact Flashcard Activity, let's watch a video of a teacher implementing the Math Fact Flashcard Activity with a small group of students. As you watch, notice how the teacher uses the round robin method to make sure that each student is provided an equal opportunity to answer the same number of flashcards. So when you're watching the video, pay close attention to the following. The teacher sets the timer for 1 minute. The student answers the flashcard correctly or incorrectly. If the student answers the flashcard incorrectly, the teacher prompts the student to use their counting up strategies. The teacher uses a round robin to allow each student a chance to answer the flashcards. The teacher and the students count the number of flashcards. And they, yep, What did they do? Can you scroll? I can do it too. Just the notes for this one.
You're so close.
Okay. So now that I've talked about the 5 steps, ooh, what are they called? Okay.
Yeah.
So now,